And Madam Clerk, if you would, please call the roll. And as we call the roll, let us know if you're attending remotely. Let us know if you're in your office here in Frankfort or in your district. And, of course, those that are here can answer the president in the room. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Storm, Senator Turner, Senator Webb.
I'm here and I'm out of state.
Thank you. Senator Wilson.
I'm here remotely in my district.
Thank you. Representative Fugit. Representative Heverin.
I'm here remotely in the 18th District.
Thank you. Representative Huff. Representative McPherson.
Present in the room.
Representative Pratt. Representative Roberts.
Present remotely.
Thank you. Representative Stevenson. Senator McDaniel. Representative Petrie.
Present in the room.
Representative Reed. Representative Upchurch.
Present from my district.
Thank you. Co-Chair Santoro.
I am in my annex office.
Thank you. Chair Higdon.
Present in the room. We do have a quorum and duly constituted to do business. So, Madam Clerk, thank you for calling the roll. Always appreciate your assistance. We entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Sounds like the ayes have it. First order of business today is Secretary Jim Gray. Mr. Secretary, the floor is yours. If you, I know you're with us. We chatted a little while ago.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me and see me, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, great. That's a good way to get started then. I have some slides to go along with our presentation, but just to, as an introduction and for context, you have asked us to make a presentation today on the major projects that we're considering and working on today, where plans are underway, construction is underway on some, and it is contemplated and speculated on others. And so we're going to talk first about the Brent Spence Bridge and then about the I-69 bridge, the corridor, the I-69 approach, and the bridge itself between Henderson and Evansville, and then the Mountain Parkway project. So it'll be about a 15-minute presentation, Mr. Chairman, and then then up to you for questions. All right, sir? Will that work?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. So first, going to talk about the Brent Spence Bridge. The Brent Spence and its surrounding corridor carries I-71 and I-75 traffic across the Ohio River between Covington and Cincinnati, as everyone, I'm sure, knows and understands. Now, in addition to its national significance, connecting 10 states, the corridor also connects locally to I-74 and US Route 50 and is a major thoroughfare for local and regional mobility. The double-decker, as the slide indicates, the double-decker Cantilever Truss Bridge was open to traffic in 1963. The lower deck carries northbound traffic and the upper deck carries southbound traffic. With 3 lanes in each direction, the structure was designed to carry 80,000 vehicles per day. That was when it was originally opened. It was designed to carry 80,000 vehicles a day with 3 lanes in each direction. Now, there's often confusion about the structural soundness of the bridge. The Brent Spence Bridge is a structurally sound bridge, and the construction trades, someone would describe it as being built hell for stout. That's a common colloquialism. The issue with the corridor is capacity and not the bridge's condition. Simply put, current traffic demand exceeds its design capacity. Safety concerns are with functionality of the roadway because it has, with today's 4 lanes in each direction instead of 3, there are no emergency shoulders. There are narrow lanes and weaving movements. So there are no safety issues related to the structural integrity of the bridge. It's to these other issues. KYTC, the Transportation Cabinet, continues to make improvements to ensure that the Brent Spence Bridge remains in operation. And let me back up here. Y'all forgive me. All right, on my slides. I don't want to get ahead of myself. The bridge, KYTC continues to make improvements to ensure that the bridge remains in operation and available to serve as a key component of the regional and national transportation network for many years. We are currently executing a contract to clean, prep, and paint the bridge, and that's expected to be completed this fall. That work, as many of you know, especially our representatives in Northern Kentucky know, that work is underway today. Now, the next slide talks about the companion bridge that's needed. Due to the increased traffic demand on the bridge, the lane configuration was adjusted in 1985 to carry 4 lanes in each direction. And that reduced the lane width from 12 feet to 11 feet. And in doing so, it eliminated our emergency shoulders. Traffic demand, as the slide indicates, has grown to 160,000 vehicles a day. And included in that number is approximately 17% commercial truck traffic, or just over 27,000 trucks a day. These numbers will only continue to climb as economic development opportunities expand and logistic companies rely on the I-71-75 corridor to deliver their goods. It's estimated that 3 to 4% of the gross domestic product of the country is hauled through this corridor annually. And that number represents, based on our total GDP for the country, represents about $600 billion a year annually. The BSB, the Brent Spence Corridor Expansion Project, is not a bridge replacement project. That's often confused when folks talk about replacing the Brent Spence. What it does is this project includes the construction of a second companion bridge to alleviate traffic congestion on this key economic corridor. And it allows for a reconfiguration of the lanes on the existing bridge. Now, in 2012, as the slide indicates too, KYTC and ODOT, which is Ohio Department of Transportation, received the necessary federal approvals to construct a companion bridge immediately west of the existing structure. Current plans improve a 7.8-mile corridor on I-71 and 75 to address safety, congestion, and geometric concerns. Now, also in 2012, a cost estimate review of the project was conducted, resulting in an estimate for the project of $2.8 billion. That's the total cost for the corridor and the bridge, the corridor improvements and the bridge, with anticipated construction between 2015 and 2020. Now, that estimate will need to be updated and adjusted for cost increases since that period. In fact, that's the study that's underway today, just began. Kentucky Transportation Cabinet and Ohio Department of Transportation continue to look for opportunities through this new contract, this new consultancy contract, to reduce project costs and decrease the footprint of the preferred alternative that was identified in the 2012 decision. Now, basically what that's saying is that we're responding to local concerns and issues to try to reduce the size of the footprint, the actual size of the bridge itself. Okay, so that's my comments on the Brent Spence. Let's move over to the second major project, Mr. Chairman, and the committee members that we were asked to talk about. And that is the I-69 Ohio River crossing. But before we take a look at the Ohio River crossing, let's talk about the significant investment that both states have made in I-69. Eventually, I-69 will serve as a new north-south interstate from Canada to Mexico. Kentucky has done our part by investing approximately $210 million to modernize our Parkway system in Western Kentucky, allowing 126 miles of I-69 to be in place between Mayfield and Henderson. During the next biennium, with an additional $25 million provided by the General Assembly, I-69 can extend another 20 miles to exit 1 at Fulton. Now, Indiana has similar mileage in place between Evansville and Martinsville and is currently under construction with their final piece to Indianapolis. I-69 between Indianapolis and the Canadian border was already in place when Congress prioritized extending to the Mexican border. That's what the slide illustrates, is the full scope of the Indiana corridor and the Kentucky corridor. The I-69 Ohio River crossing, the corridor itself, the approaches, and the bridge is an important piece of the I-69 corridor that will connect these major investments in both Kentucky and Indiana. This next slide talks about the schedule. The combined final environmental impact statement and record of decision was approved by the Federal Highway Administration just this month. Big step. The record of decision signifies final approval of the selected alternative and clears the way to move to construction. A big deal. And that's going to happen in quick order, with Kentucky ready to begin construction in Henderson early next year. In fact, in terms of the contracts for construction, the bidding for construction is the initial technical and commercial proposals are expected in November, and the award could be made as early as the end of the year. The new I-69 river crossing will address long-term cross-river mobility while improving safety and reducing congestion. We've divided the I-69 Ohio River crossing into two sections for construction. KYTC is overseeing ORX Section 1, which focuses on approach work and improvements in Henderson, and it extends from Kentucky 425 to US 60. We have 3 shortlisted design build teams, which I just mentioned, and expect to award the contract by the end of this year, as I've already mentioned. Construction will start early next year and continue through 2025. The estimated cost for this phase of the project is $230 million. ORX Section 1 will extend I-69 by more than 6 miles and include 2 new interchanges and 1 reconstructed interchange. ORX Section 2 includes the 4-lane tolled river crossing and is a bi-state project between Kentucky and Indiana. It's expected to cost around $1 billion, $1 billion, with construction starting in 2027 and continuing through 2031. Now, both states will continue to look for opportunities to accelerate the timeline for building the river crossing. Let me punctuate that. Both states are looking for opportunities to accelerate this timeline for building the river crossing. That is the bridge. I should have said earlier that State Highway Engineer James Ballinger is on with us today, and James will supplement and footnote and correct me wherever I've made an error. Okay, now we can shift to the Mountain Parkway. As all of you know, not many of you know, the Mountain Parkway expansion represents a more than 50-year promise to Eastern Kentucky to complete a 4-lane corridor linking Eastern Kentucky with the rest of the state. The Parkway is a vital resource for economic development, tourism, and quality of life. The expansion project connects southeastern Kentucky with the Bluegrass region and beyond. Now, when completed, the Parkway will be the final link to create a 4-lane high-speed corridor running the length of the state from Paducah to Pikeville. As you know, the current project began in 2014 and 2015 with a plan to extend the 4-lane sections of the Parkway all the way to Prestonsburg to connect with US 23. Now, this is a 46-mile stretch through the hills and mountains of Eastern Kentucky. This slide illustrates the project. The current project includes widening and improving 29.5 miles of existing parkway between Campton and Salyersville, extending the parkway 2.5 miles through Salyersville Restaurant Row, and extending the parkway by about 14 miles from Salyersville to Prestonsburg. The project team has made significant progress on the expansion project since construction began in 2015. This slide illustrates that the project is divided into 6 segments, half of which are now complete, and that represents roughly a third of the total project miles. Another segment, 4.6 miles in Magoffin County with a cross-county alignment, is actively under construction today. The 11-mile Wolfe County segment is moving forward and will start construction in 2022 with the help of a $55 million infra grant. So by around this time next year, we'll have another third of the project miles under construction. 2/3 of the way there. To date, the total project costs remain very close to the initial project estimate of $754 million. In total, KYTC, the cabinet, has authorized $459.5 million for the segments already completed, underway, or about to start in Wolfe County. Now, this amount includes $79 million in federal support from 2 federal grants won for the project. Now the time has come for the final piece of the Mountain Parkway expansion, extending the parkway 14 miles from Salyersville to Prestonsburg. And we estimate that roughly $300 million will be needed to complete this segment of the project and deliver on the promise to complete the Mountain Parkway expansion. The larger investment from a cost per mile perspective is necessary due to the complexities of the remainder of the project and the terrain of Eastern Kentucky. So, Mr. Chairman, that completes my presentation on the 3 projects, the major projects that you asked us to speak to today.
All right. We do have some questions. Representative Stevenson has a question.
I actually don't have a question, but I did want to talk about the Mountain Parkway expansion. As most of you know, I'm from Knott County, and my mama and daddy still live down there. And every time I go, that trip gets a little quicker and a little quicker because of this. And I just want to, praise that this is finally happening for these people, and that trip is getting shorter for us. And I will really age myself when I talk about remembering the tolls on the Mountain Parkway and remembering what a big deal it was when they were finally lifted. So this has been a long time coming for the people of Eastern Kentucky, and I am just so grateful that it's happening, and it's been amazing to watch that work take place, and I'm just very grateful. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And Mr. Secretary, this all these projects we've touched on, these major projects. I'm sure we're seeking grant funding for. I don't know. Are we seeking grant funding for all of them, or certain projects? Or
Well, that's a good question. It's a good question, Mr. Chairman. Especially the Brent Spence Bridge is getting a lot of attention through the IIJA legislation, the infrastructure package that's before the Congress today. Within that package is $12.5 billion for large bridge projects. And since the Brent Spence is sort of the poster child for infrastructure challenges, then it would be a perfect candidate, and we expect to apply for a grant there. I-69, we already applied for a grant for I-69. We didn't make it for an infra grant last year. What we're seeing, and this is relevant and important, what we're seeing is that these grant projects are particularly competitive. And what we're seeing is that the routine match of perhaps a 20% is the ante's moving up. And an overmatch is actually occurring today, overmatch in these competitions. So it's no longer just a 20% that we have to come up with, but it's more in order to be competitive.
One final question, unless someone else has one, but tolling is always a something that comes up on these mega projects. And Representative Stevenson, to be deja vu for her if he towed that last section of the Mountain Parkway. But what is the possibility, or is there thoughts on as our match, the required match to be competitive? Does tolling play a part in that?
Well, it's all speculation I'll say, as far as the infrastructure package. And so but if it does materialize at the level that we're expecting, then certainly the aspiration is that we would be able to avoid tolls. And that's what the governor has indicated. And that's what the legislature, I believe Senator Stivers has also indicated. So we're working on financial models with Ohio, and those financial models would include, however, the grant to come through. So we would be dependent on the grant.
Thank you. Representative Roberts, who is attending remotely, has a question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Secretary Gray. My question is around the Brent Spence Bridge, which, as you know, has a huge impact on the area that I live in. So you set a great precedent with the fire remediation and the repair that you did last time and got that bridge open a little early. So I'm wondering if you could talk to us about what your expected reopen date for that. And then secondarily, what we've realized with the Brent Spence Bridge over these last several months is that traffic patterns have changed and people are using the 275 outer loop going to 471. And those on and off ramps there were never designed to handle the influx of traffic that we're seeing. So I'm wondering if you can talk about perhaps any plans to expand those on and off ramps for 471 when the future construction projects get going. Thanks so much.
Okay, and thank you, Representative Roberts. Let me talk about I think your first question was, when will we reopen from the painting contract, right? Okay, and I'm going to ask State Highway Engineer James Ballinger if he can speak to the on and off ramps. James, and if we don't have that answer today, then we'll get it back to you. We'll get back to you, Representative Roberts. But in terms of the painting project for the bridge, it is moving. In fact, we just had a conversation. I was on the call this week with the painting contractor, with the president of the firm, to talk about the schedule, and it is on schedule as we speak today for this fall reopening and completion of the project. So that's where that one stands. And James, can you speak to the on and off ramp question?
Sure. Thank you, Secretary, and Representative. Thank you for the question. We had a meeting with our counterparts in Ohio just yesterday, and we were talking about this new contract with the consultant firm HNTB that the Secretary mentioned earlier, and that's one of the activities that we will be doing over the next several months. Though, is we're going to be looking at the impacts to the local community and the neighborhoods in Covington, Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati, during the development of the plans for the bridge. And the plan currently is to really look at ways to minimize the impact on those communities during the construction. So that's one of the major activities that we've asked the consultant to look at. So hopefully that going forward during the construction of the bridge, though, we wouldn't have those type impacts on 275. That's certainly something that we will look at. I know the Secretary said we don't have any plans currently to do that. Of course, the repair due to the fire was unexpected. With this painting contract, we understand that it's gone pretty well, but there has been some additional traffic, especially truck traffic along the 275 corridor. So we're definitely aware of those, and we're going to look comprehensively at the entire region during the construction of the project, though. And if there's things that we need to do, certainly we'll take those under consideration. Thank you,
Mr. Secretary and Mr. Ballinger. It looks like okay. Chairman Petrie has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand the 3 mega projects that you referenced in your presentation, and thank you. Are there any other large, maybe semi-mega projects that you can just mention very quickly?
Well, let's see, James. We've got 27 right in Russell County, and what's the size of that? I wouldn't characterize these as mega projects. These are just projects that are routine. What other? We've got John Moore on the line here too, so he can help us.
And Mr. Secretary, it's a cold question. I know the topic today were these 3 projects. If you don't mind getting the committee or myself a list of just the major regional projects that you have either in planning stage or in process stage. Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You may. Yes, sir.
The infra grants that you mentioned, at least in reference to one project, and I was going to ask about each of the 3 mega projects, but would you also supply a list of what infra grants are planned, in process, and waiting for a decision right now?
Yes, sir. We can do that.
Okay, and then lastly, I think is you mentioned in the application for grants, there's an overmatch almost required. Do we routinely talk to local government and solicit or encourage a local component of the match that goes in for these large grants?
Yes. As you can imagine, that the local component is often modest because the resources are certainly more modest.
Very much so. I just want to make sure the main part of it is not how much, because that's going to depend on the project, but is that normal for these larger projects? There's almost a requirement that there be a local component.
John Moore, you're nodding your head, so I'm going to let you pipe in.
Absolutely. My name is John Moore. I'm an assistant state highway engineer for project development and construction. And to answer that question, it depends a lot on the grant program in each cycle of the grant program, because each cycle, the instructions that are provided by the grantor are modified slightly, which favor certain projects over others. And as those instructions come out, we identify projects that would be most competitive from the projects that we have. Among the competitive elements of late have been local participation and local support, and through coordination with the grantor staff, we've identified that fiscal support is the best kind of support that we can demonstrate with the project. So, with many of these build grants that we've had in the past, and raise grants as we move forward, infra grants and so forth, we've approached locals to show their support through letters as well as through fiscal support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just for minute purposes, if nothing else, if we could just follow up and make sure that we get a copy of those mega projects and semi-regional project lists, as well as the planned, in process, and waiting for decision grants that are ongoing. And if I could get a copy of that when it comes out, would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We will get a little sneak preview of some of those additional projects as we go into the shift priorities here in just a minute. But Chairman Petrie, on the grants and local participation, I can tell you firsthand on one in myself and Senator Wise district, Taylor County and Marion County. I think they put up $250,000, $300,000 total, and originally they were looking for $25 million. They ended up getting 10, but the match was still the same. But there is communities that are want to participate. They need skin in the game to show that they do want these projects. So hopefully that will continue. Mr. Secretary and Mr. Ballinger, that concludes our questions for you. Thank you all for all that you do. You're always available for us and accessible, and we appreciate that. And you're always very forthcoming with your answers, and we appreciate your open dialogue with us. And thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate you all. Appreciate your public service to everybody on this call.
Thank you. Next up is shift process and priorities. John Moore. And John, we roughly have about 30 minutes. We have another meeting in this room at I think at either 11:30 or noon. So the floor is yours.
That shouldn't be a problem. Thank you, Chairman. Just reiterating what we talked about before and sharing where we are in the process now. As you recall, this is one of the shift is one of the aspects as to where highway plan projects come from. If I can figure out how to move my, there we go. And as you recall, prioritization includes local planning organizations, area development districts, MPOs, as well as the planning offices from our 12 districts. As we were identifying a process, we wanted one that could be continually improved from cycle to cycle, and to help us decode a myriad of data that we have for a vast amount of projects within the system. So introduced to y'all the shift process before. Just going to touch lightly on it again.
Mr. Moore, let me make a comment real quick. And I know you continue to try to improve the shift process, and for it to work, we need to. One comment I made last year, and I did see improvement, but there's a lot of room for additional improvement. Most of these shift meetings are held when we're in session, and representatives and senators are not given ample opportunity to participate in these discussions. And so I just, as we go forward, please keep that in mind. Now, Zoom meetings did help some, but like I said, it is important that these meetings be scheduled when the senators and representatives can attend. I don't know that they will, but I want to make sure, my job is to make sure they have an opportunity to attend. So please proceed. I appreciate that.
And based on the feedback from you all, we actually extended some of the early meetings a full month or month and a half to try and facilitate many of those meetings. So I hope that helped that.
Yeah, there was an effort to accommodate us, but there's still room for improvement on that. So I just want to make that point, and we do appreciate you making it a priority.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Shift, as you're aware of, is the goal is to be data-driven and objective, to be used as a comparative guide across the very varied state that we have. We do incorporate local input through these meetings with our planning organizations. We did model this off of other successful states throughout the country. And the goal at the end of the day is for this process to be transparent and defensible, to be very clear as to where our decisions come from. The projects that are included through the SHIFT process include safety improvements, road widening, reconstruction, new interchanges or new routes. Projects that have their own prioritization processes include rural municipal aid, MPO dedicated projects, other federal programs, some more niche federal programs, as well as our maintenance or asset management projects. Before we talked about the 5 elements: safety, asset management, congestion, cost benefit, and economic growth. We're looking at the project safety history, the characteristics of the roadway for the safety component, looking for projects that improve multiple aspects of the system. So if they have bridge and pavement needs, as well as shift-related needs, then that helps bring that project to the forefront. Any projects that have capacity needs, and then looking at the travel time savings and safety benefit as compared to the cost of the project. And lastly, the anticipated or predicted local and regional economic improvement by completing this project. And part of that is the impact on freight mobility in the area. With those various components, safety, we have 2 different levels of projects. There's the statewide, which is those projects that are on the national highway system. These are 100% data driven. These include safety, congestion. But I've read those to you, apologize. But safety has a majority of the weight at 25%. Congestion, economic growth, and benefit cost are all at 20%, and asset management at 15%. As we move into regional, we have slightly lower weights on the priorities, but we also include the district and local priorities. This is where we go out to those local planning organizations and find the needs that are not readily captured by the data elements that we use for scoring. And this is a process that just concluded over the past couple months. So the process, just to share that with you and where we are in the process, is we have the identification of the projects, the sponsorship, which occurred at the beginning of this year, reviewing and scoring. Then we identify statewide priorities. We go into project boosting. Then we try to make sense of it, of the scores and the boosts. And out of that, we hope comes a recommended highway plan that then gets sent to the General Assembly. So this was, if I recall, Chairman, that this is where there may have been a little bit of concern at the beginning of the process, and we will strive to improve that over in future cycles. But just as a reminder, we had almost 4,000 projects identified from the local officials and local planners, and that's over $70 billion worth of projects that have been identified. Out of those, we did ask them to, okay, let's trim those down. So so there's a smaller set that we can look at more in depth. We winnowed that down to 1,200 projects, totaling $24 billion. And that's still a significant amount. So this is where we get into the scoring process. And with the statewide priority, which we concluded at the end of July, we had 275 projects totaling $11 billion. And out of that, we identified 52 projects on the interstates and parkways, totaling $7 billion that may not be funded out of, they may not all be funded out of normal state dollars, or normal allocations. But these are the projects that really take take a little bit of emphasis to fund, because these are the projects on our interstates and parkways and are traditionally more higher dollar projects. The remainder of those projects went into the boosting process. So we provided quantitative scores to the local planners and asked our legislative partners to participate in that. And I heard a lot of reports that many of your members took the opportunity to be involved with that. So very appreciative of y'all's participation with that. But this is a collaborative effort between all parties to identify those elements outside of the data elements that play into why a project should move forward. This concluded today, or is concluding today, and next week we'll move into. Excuse me, this is an old slide I should have removed. But as we move, I'm going to move up this way just to talk from it. Excuse me. As we move from the boosting, we'll move into regional priorities as we now that we collect the boosts and the scores, we add a layer of practicality, which projects when they'll be ready for each phase, when they'll how the project will interact. For example, we don't want to open up a bunch of projects all in the same area, and as the Representative Roberts was mentioning, it would be tough to do something on Brent, Spence, and 471 at the same time. So looking at those nuances to try and schedule projects out. And from that, we will inform the capacity side of the highway plan. In parallel, we're also working on our pavement and bridge priorities to help inform the balance of the highway plan, as well as the other the needs that round out the overall highway plan. So, Secretary, that's in a brief, or Mr. Chairman, that's in a brief where we're at. We're kind of at a crossroads a bit, so I apologize. There's not more to share with you, but we've mainly been waiting to get the local feedback from our planning partners. Okay,
one question that I have that as we now as the Transportation Cabinet starts putting together the governor's recommended road plan and for the budget that he presents to the House, are you going to use? Will we see shift scores and priorities on the road plan, or is that something that because in the past we haven't used that? And if we're using shift as a priority tool, I was hoping that you would show, you would have that information in the road plan as we move forward. Is that something that you'll be doing this time?
We haven't addressed that. We're a little bit away from that time frame, but we appreciate the recommendation, and we'll definitely take that into consideration.
Well, I think if we're going to make this, if shift's going to be viable and it's going to be a tool that we use to prioritize road projects, we should see that. And now not ever, some projects are come up at the spur of the moment that need to be dealt with. But as we do a road plan, we should see what those local folks and as the process moved along, what each project, what its priority was, and if it's a bridge to nowhere and it doesn't have much of a priority, we that should be a consideration as we do our budget. Or if it's the number one project in a region, that should have carry some clout also. So just saying, it'd be nice if we knew that information when it comes to us.
Thank you for those comments.
Any other questions? Senator Storm, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
You want to? There's something going on in London this weekend that you want to plug?
We have the World Chicken Festival down in London. If anybody wants to stop by and check it out, it's worldwide.
It's a big deal.
absolutely, we have the world's largest skillet for fried chicken as we speak.
Okay. Well, we have the world's largest pie pan in Casey County for the Apple Festival. So the world's largest apple pie. And so you're welcome to the Apple Festival Friday and Saturday, then Ham Day, Saturday and Sunday in Lebanon. So festivals everywhere. Seeing no further questions, motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Have a good weekend.